Andrew Carnegie loved to tell people his Fifth Avenue home was the most modest, plainest, and roomiest house in New York. That line sounded humble. It also hit a truth. The house at Fifth Avenue and 91st Street, finished in 1902, had 64 rooms and more than 56,000 square feet of space. It sat on 1.2 acres, an entire city block, wrapped by a tall iron fence and a private garden that almost no one else in Manhattan could claim. Plain? Only if you stood it next to the marble palaces of the Vanderbilts and tried not to stare. From the street, the mansion wore red brick and pink granite. The style was calm and balanced, like a Georgian country house. Straight lines, tall windows, and neat stone trim. Inside, the restraint softened. Rooms glowed with carved teak, wood shipped from India, polished to a deep shine. A Tiffany stained glass window cast colored light over the reception hall. Ceilings rose 20 feet, making voices sound small. There was no ballroom for 1,000 people, no ceiling spilling with gold leaf, no walls smothered in marble. But this was not a small home. It was comfort at a massive scale. To understand why Andrew Carnegie built it this way, you have to know the street he avoided. By 1900, Fifth Avenue between 50th and 60th Streets had a nickname, Millionaire's Row. This was where the Vanderbilt family built palaces that looked like French chateaux. Steps away, other families tried to outshine them with carved stone, imported marble, and ballrooms the size of train stations. These places weren't just homes. They were messages written in stone. We are rich. We are powerful. Look at us. Andrew Carnegie could have joined that contest and probably won. He had just sold Carnegie Steel to J.P. Morgan in 1901 for a price the world could barely believe. Out of that sale, Carnegie personally received about $225 million, more than almost any American had ever held, except John D. Rockefeller. If he wanted a palace that mockingly dwarfed the Vanderbilts, he could have built it without blinking, but he didn't. He went far uptown to 91st Street, a location many high society families still considered too remote. He bought the whole block so he could have what he valued even more than marble, space and light. He told his architects, Babb, Cook, and Willard, to make it dignified, efficient, and comfortable. No gold fireworks, no foolish show. The house would be big, yes, but it would speak softly. The finished layout proved the point. Visitors climbed a few steps to a steady, unfussy entrance. Inside, rooms flowed like a calm river. A library, a music room, a reception room, a dining room, and a conservatory with glass and greenery. Upstairs, family suites and guest rooms filled the second floor. Higher still were a nursery and long halls. At the top, discreet corridors and small bedrooms made up the servants' floor, an unseen machine that kept a giant house moving. The garden sealed the message. In Manhattan, ground is wealth. Carnegie kept a lawn, mature trees, flower beds, a pergola for shade, and a conservatory for delicate plants, all inside those walls. It was a private park at a time when only Central Park offered real space to most New Yorkers. To rich neighbors used to indoor splendor, this was a different kind of brag. The Vanderbilts had a ballroom, Carnegie had quiet. Newspapers took the hint. They called the house modest, especially for a man of such wealth. People noticed the address too. If Andrew Carnegie lived at 91st Street, maybe 91st Street was fashionable after all. In a few years, new mansions appeared nearby. The area even took a new name, Carnegie Hill. One decision, where to live, pulled a whole neighborhood north. Yet the house also told a complicated story. A man who said, "The one who dies rich dies disgraced," lived in 64 rooms. A man who wrote about helping workers ran the largest non-union steel empire in America. A man who praised simplicity imported teak from India and installed Tiffany glass. This mansion was not only a home, it was a public message, a careful performance. I am rich, but responsible. I am powerful, but plain. The question behind the door was whether the message matched the man. To answer that, we have to go back to where he started, a single room in Scotland. From one room in Scotland, Andrew Carnegie was born on November 25, 1835, in Dunfermline, Scotland, a town famous for weavers and older royal history. His father, William Carnegie, made fine damask linen on hand looms. The family lived like many weaving families did: workshop on the ground floor, living space upstairs. And for the Carnegies, that living space was one room: kitchen, bed, table, and life all jammed together. At first, the work was steady. For a time, the United States dropped tariffs on linen and orders poured in. William added more looms and did well for a while. But the Industrial Revolution had its own plans. New power looms and factories could weave faster and cheaper. Quality improved, prices fell. The hand loom, slow and proud, started losing the fight. By the late 1830s, the market flipped. Tariffs returned, orders vanished, factories spread in Scotland itself, and undercut families like the Carnegies. Margaret Carnegie, Andrew's mother, did everything she could to keep food on the table: mending, selling small goods, taking on any work she could find. It wasn't enough. Poverty stepped through the door and sat at their table every day. There was another battle in the air: politics. William Carnegie and Tom Morrison, Andrew's uncle, supported the Chartist movement, which pressed for voting rights for working men and fairer representation in Parliament. They wrote, spoke, and organized. But the Chartists lost. The factories marched on. The looms at home stayed quiet. Margaret made the decision that changed everything: America. Her sister had written encouraging letters from Allegheny, across the river from Pittsburgh. She said there was work and a chance to start fresh. The Carnegies sold nearly everything, borrowed the last bit they needed, and bought passage. In 1848, Andrew was 12 years old when he climbed onto a ship called the Wiscasset and left Scotland behind. For a month and a half, they crossed the Atlantic in cramped, dark, and rough conditions. Then came the canal and river journey west into the heart of the United States. What waited for them at the end was not hope wrapped in ribbon. It was Pittsburgh, smoky, hot, loud, and crowded. People called it hell with the lid off. But it also had something Dunfermline could no longer offer: work. The immigrant boy. The Carnegies settled on Rebecca Street in Allegheny, which faced Pittsburgh across the river. They shared a small wooden house with another family. Privacy was a luxury they did not have. William tried to find weaving work, but the skill that once paid the rent now brought only scraps. The family needed money fast, and Andrew was old enough to help. At 12, he started in a cotton mill as a bobbin boy. The job was simple and punishing: load empty bobbins, unload full ones, and keep the machines fed. The hours were 12 a day, 6 days a week. The pay was $120 a week. The air was thick with lint. The sound never stopped. His feet and back hurt every night, but his paycheck helped the family survive. A year later, he found a little better job for $2 a week. Then opportunity appeared in 1849, telegraph messenger for the Ohio Telegraph Company, about $2.50 a week to deliver messages around the city. It was still hard work, but it took him out of the mill and into offices and shops. He saw how business moved. He watched how bankers, railroad men, and factory owners made decisions. He also watched telegraph operators, calm, skilled workers who turned clicks into words and earned more than laborers without breaking their bodies. He decided to become one of them. Andrew Carnegie taught himself Morse code. He begged for time at the keys. He listened to the clicks until he could hear words without writing them down. This rare skill impressed everyone. By 15, he was a telegraph operator. His pay rose to about $25 a month. The most important change wasn't money, it was exposure. He met Thomas A. Scott, a rising leader at the Pennsylvania Railroad. Scott saw a quick mind and serious effort in the teenage operator. In 1853, when Carnegie was 17, Scott hired him as private secretary and telegraph operator for $35 a month. The job came with new skills: scheduling, contracts, supply, and the daily puzzle of keeping trains moving across hundreds of miles of track. Pittsburgh gave Andrew Carnegie a second classroom. The first had been the overheated cotton mill. This one had steel rails and moving trains. He also studied in a place that changed his life: the free library opened by Colonel James Anderson, who let working boys borrow books on Saturday nights. Carnegie read history, poetry, and science. He stored up ideas he would later turn into gifts for the world. As the 1850s marched on, Carnegie learned something few people his age understood. Capital makes more money than labor. He learned it the day Thomas Scott told him about shares in a sleeping car company. The price was $500, which Carnegie did not have. With his mother's blessing, they mortgaged the family home to buy in. Soon a check arrived. Dividends. Money earned without lifting a single bobbin. The lesson was clear. Owning is different from working. He kept learning, investing small amounts in railroad suppliers, bridges, and even oil. He watched closely and kept notes about what worked and what failed. During the Civil War, he managed more responsibility when Scott went to Washington. After the war, Carnegie looked around and saw where America was heading: railroads, bridges, cities, and machines, all hungry for iron and steel. He decided to build the thing America needed most: building the steel empire. In 1865, Andrew Carnegie left the railroad and started the Keystone Bridge Company. Wooden bridges burned and broke too easily. Iron bridges lasted. With his railroad relationships, he won contracts and delivered strong structures. But bridges were just the first step. He wanted to control every piece of the chain: iron ore, coal, coke, mills, rail lines, and finished steel. This approach, vertical integration, made him less dependent on others and more able to cut costs. In the early 1870s, he embraced a new process from Britain, the Bessemer process, which blew air through molten iron to burn out impurities and make steel quickly and cheaply. In 1873, he opened the Edgar Thomson Steel Works near Pittsburgh, named after a Pennsylvania Railroad president, a smart move that pleased a major customer. Even a deep depression starting in 1873 could not stop him. While others failed, he bought their assets, improved his plants, and prepared for the recovery. When the economy finally woke up, Carnegie Steel was bigger, faster, and leaner than the rest. What made Carnegie different was his obsession with costs. He demanded detailed cost accounting before most competitors even knew what that meant. He wanted to know the price of everything: ore, coal, labor, shipping, down to the last cent. If one unit ran too hot, he fixed it. If a manager missed targets, he replaced him. If a plant lagged, he modernized or closed it. In 1881, Henry Clay Frick joined the empire. Frick controlled coke, the fuel steelmaking needed, and he managed plants with an iron will. Productivity rose, prices dropped. Carnegie Steel could underbid its rivals and still make a profit. By the 1890s, the company controlled a huge share of American steel. The mills ran day and night. The profits mounted. But the work was dangerous and exhausting. Men labored in extreme heat for 12-hour shifts. Injuries were constant. Death was not rare. The pay, compared to the company's profits, was low. Carnegie spent more and more time in New York and Scotland writing about the duties of the rich and the value of learning. He liked to say he respected workers and supported their right to organize. The trouble was that on the ground, Frick ran operations, and Frick despised unions. That difference would explode at a place called Homestead. The Homestead Strike. In 1892, Andrew Carnegie went to Skibo Castle in Scotland for the summer as usual. Meanwhile, at the Homestead Steelworks near Pittsburgh, about 800 skilled employees belonged to a strong union called the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers. Their contract was ending and they wanted higher wages. Productivity had jumped and profits were up. They believed they deserved a share. Henry Clay Frick said no. He argued productivity rose because the company invested in newer, better equipment, not because workers suddenly became more skilled. He demanded lower rates for many jobs. Negotiations collapsed. On June 25th, Frick locked out the union men and ordered a high fence with barbed wire built around the plant. He hired 300 armed guards from the Pinkerton National Detective Agency to seize the mill and bring in non-union labor. On July 6th, 2 Pinkerton barges tried to land at Homestead. A huge crowd of workers and townspeople met them on the riverbank. Shouting began. Someone fired. To this day, no one knows who shot first. The fight lasted 14 hours. The crowd had hunting rifles, pistols, even a small cannon. The Pinkertons had Winchesters. By evening, 3 Pinkertons and 7 workers and townspeople were dead, and dozens were wounded. The Pinkertons surrendered and were beaten badly as they ran a gauntlet back out of town. The workers had won the battle, but not the war. Within days, the Pennsylvania State Militia, 8,000 troops, marched in, took the town, and guarded the mill. With soldiers on site, Frick reopened with non-union workers. The strike dragged on for months, but the company could wait longer than hungry families. By November, the union collapsed at Homestead. The steel industry would stay mostly non-union for decades. The public was shocked. Many people blamed Carnegie, who had claimed to support workers in essays and speeches. He had even talked about the dignity of labor. But now, it looked like he let Frick do the dirty work while he enjoyed Scotland. The press called him a hypocrite. His name would forever be tied to Homestead, and the blood spilled there. The lesson was harsh. Your reputation cannot hide across an ocean. Words about fairness mean little if your company crushes a union with violence. When Carnegie planned his Fifth Avenue house years later, he knew people would compare the home to his claims about moral duty. The mansion would need to show restraint, reason, and responsibility. But no amount of teak or brick could erase Homestead. That stain stayed, the richest man in the world. The strike did not ruin Carnegie Steel. The mills kept turning. The profits kept coming. In 1897, Andrew Carnegie and his wife, Louise Whitfield Carnegie, welcomed their only child, Margaret. He was 61, she was 39. He had written for years that wealthy men must give away their fortunes while still alive. But how could he do that while his company kept earning more? He needed to sell. By 1900, Carnegie Steel was making around $40 million a year in profits. The company controlled iron ore, coal, coke, rail lines, and massive mills. J.P. Morgan, America's most powerful banker, wanted to combine the largest steelmakers into one giant corporation. He sent Charles M. Schwab, the president of Carnegie Steel, to ask the one question that mattered. What's your price? Andrew Carnegie wrote a number on a slip of paper. $480 million. J.P. Morgan looked at it and said, I accept. In 1901, the deal closed. U.S. Steel was born, the first billion-dollar corporation in history. For his share, Carnegie received about $225 million in bonds and securities. Suddenly, the boy who once earned $1 a week had more money than almost anyone on earth. He retired. And then he got to work. Each morning at his Fifth Avenue mansion, Andrew Carnegie sat at a desk and read letters from towns across America and beyond. Please help us build a library. He answered with a plan. He would fund the building if the town agreed to provide the land and support it with taxes. That simple deal created a wave of public libraries, more than 2,500 around the world. He also funded Carnegie Hall, the Carnegie Institute of Technology, today Carnegie Mellon University, the Carnegie Institution for Science, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the Hero Fund for people who died saving others, and many more. By the time he died in 1919, he had given away about $350 million, around 90% of his fortune. The house at 91st Street became the control room for this giving. In that sense, the Plain Mansion was not only a home, it was a factory for philanthropy. Still, critics asked a hard question. If workers had been paid more or had stronger unions, would they have needed his charity at all? Andrew Carnegie believed he was doing the right thing, earning under the rules of capitalism, then redistributing wealth to increase knowledge and improve society. Others saw a contradiction he could never fully solve. Both can be true. The money came from a system that was often harsh. The gifts built things that changed lives. Louise and Margaret, in 1887, at age 51, Andrew Carnegie married Louise Whitfield, who was 30. She came from a respected New York family, not poor, but not part of the grand Fifth Avenue scene. She loved books and music and valued privacy. Their wedding was small. Their life together was steady, organized, and gentle compared with the glittering parties just a mile or two south. After Margaret was born in 1897, Andrew saw life differently. He had spent years racing across mills and rail lines. Now he spent mornings reading to a daughter and evenings listening to music with his wife. When the new house opened in 1902, it reflected Louise's taste as much as his ideals. Warm, comfortable rooms, good light, a garden where a child could run on grass instead of stone. Louise ran the household like a quiet orchestra. Dozens of employees kept the place working: cooks, maids, chauffeurs, gardeners, and porters. Yet she avoided showy entertaining. Dinners were small. Guests were chosen for conversation, not spectacle. She protected Andrew's time for work and guarded Margaret's childhood from the press. The family spent winters in New York and summers at Skibo Castle in Scotland, until World War I made crossing the Atlantic dangerous. Then, they stayed closer to home. In that balance, public giving, private home, Louise was the anchor. She helped Andrew keep his promise to stay modest in manner, even when everything around them shouted wealth. Building the plain mansion. By 1898, the plan was set. Andrew Carnegie would build a permanent New York home far enough uptown to gain quiet and sunlight. He chose Babb, Cook and Willard as architects. Their buildings were known for proportion, craft, and restraint. They would design a brick and stone mansion that looked like a country house stretched to city size. Construction began in 1900. Under the beautiful brick skin, the house had a modern secret, a steel frame, the same kind of structure that made skyscrapers possible, now supporting a private home. It was a nod to the industry that made Carnegie rich, and a symbol of how he wanted to live, progress without noise. The interior plan worked like a machine. The library, his favorite room, took a whole wing, lined with books and fitted with an organ loft for evening music. The music room wasn't a ballroom, it was a space for listening. The dining room opened toward the garden. The conservatory brought in warmth and green during winter. The service routes were hidden and efficient. Dumbwaiters, back staircases, and speaking tubes so the house could run smoothly without staff crossing the main halls. Louise chose the furniture and colors, comfortable, not loud. The electric lights and modern plumbing were state-of-the-art. The heating system used boilers and a network of radiators and vents to keep rooms warm and air fresh. Even the coal that fed the boilers moved along a tiny rail line in the basement, a practical trick to save labor and time. By 1902, the house stood complete, a long, dignified rectangle facing Fifth Avenue with large windows and a quiet portico. Some critics joked that calling it plain was like calling a hotel cozy, but they also admitted it had a different spirit. It wasn't trying to win a contest. It was trying to work for a family, for light, and for the life Andrew said wealth should support. Innovation behind brick walls. From the sidewalk, the mansion looked traditional. Inside, it ran on modern engineering. The steel skeleton held up wide rooms and tall ceilings. Babcock and Wilcox boilers powered a reliable heating system. Electric wiring, installed when many houses still used gas, filled rooms with clean light. An Otis service elevator moved staff and supplies quietly. The ventilation kept air fresh and steady. The kitchens used gas ranges and early refrigeration. The entire basement worked like a small utility plant. Above ground, the house felt calm. To Andrew Carnegie, beauty lived in order. The house didn't show off its machinery. It hid it, like good manners. Guests never saw the valves or meters. They saw sunlit rooms and heard music drifting from the organ. But the comfort they felt came from pipes, wires, and vents placed with careful thought. This was Carnegie's idea in stone. Let technology serve human life, not dominate it. Let a house be a machine for living, quiet, efficient, and kind. The garden, Manhattan's rarest. Luxury, most rich New Yorkers used every inch of their lots for stone and decoration. Carnegie did the opposite. He kept the garden. A broad lawn, hedges, trees, and a pergola made a calm rectangle of green behind the house. A conservatory grew orchids and tropical plants when the weather turned gray. From the library and dining room, he could look out on leaves and light. For his daughter Margaret, it was a safe place to run and learn the seasons. Tulips and dogwood in spring, heavy wisteria in summer, gold leaves in fall, and clear structure under snow in winter. Keeping a garden in early 1900s, Manhattan took work. Gardeners washed coal dust off leaves. Rainwater from the roof fed underground cisterns. The garden was not an afterthought. It was part of the house's moral plan. Wealth should create places of rest and beauty that make life better. Some days, neighborhood children came in to play under the gardener's watch. For those hours, the richest lawn in New York became a shared space. It was a small act of generosity wrapped in green. The philanthropist's office. At the center of the house, the library doubled as Andrew Carnegie's command post. Mornings began with letters from mayors, teachers, pastors, and citizens asking for help to build libraries. Carnegie's rule was consistent. He would fund the building if the town would support it forever. It wasn't charity without strings. It was a partnership. He wanted communities to invest in themselves. From that desk, he also launched or supported Carnegie Hall, the Carnegie Institution for Science, Carnegie Tech, the Endowment for International Peace, and the Hero Fund. Files filled the shelves, receipts, reports, and plans. He measured impact the way he once measured production. He demanded results. The work felt to him like a better kind of business. He kept a small sign with a line he loved, "Let there be light." For Andrew Carnegie, light meant knowledge, books open on tables, students in classrooms, scientists in laboratories, music in halls, and people walking through doors that had once been closed to them. August 1919. By 1919, Andrew Carnegie was 83. He spent his last summer at Shadowbrook in Massachusetts, reading in the sun and telling stories to his grandchildren. The Great War had ended, but it saddened him that the world had chosen guns before reason. Even so, he held on to hope. He died on August 11th, 1919, with Louise by his side. The funeral was private. He was laid to rest at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in Tarrytown under a simple stone. The gifts he left behind spoke louder than any statue could. Libraries, schools, and institutions planted across the world. Louise stayed in the house, living quietly and guarding her husband's legacy. The rooms grew gentler with time. The garden stayed green. The city built higher and louder around the walls, but inside the fence, order still ruled. Inside the rooms, a walk through the house, step through the front doors, and pause under the quiet glow of the hall. The entrance hall rises 2 stories, bright but not flashy. From here, you can see why Andrew Carnegie called the house plain compared to the palaces downtown. There is no gold leaf shouting for attention. Instead, the room is calm, with smooth stone, warm wood, and wide light. To your left, the reception room welcomes small groups. It is not huge. Chairs are placed to encourage face-to-face talk. The walls carry soft color and careful detail. When guests arrive, they do not feel tiny under a giant ceiling. They feel comfortable. That was the point. Andrew Carnegie wanted ideas to move, not people to stare. Beyond the reception room sits the music room. It was never built for a grand ball. It was built for listening. Lamps cast a gentle light. The sound of a pipe organ fills the air without echoing too much. You can imagine Andrew and Louise Carnegie sitting side by side while a friend plays. On quiet evenings, a small group gathers and the music floats through open doors into the hall and out toward the garden. Walk forward to the library, the heart of the house. Shelves climb toward a carved ceiling. Books sit in neat rows: history, poetry, science, travel, and speeches. A large desk stands near the windows that face the lawn. This desk is where Andrew Carnegie reads letters and signs checks. It is also where he writes notes in the margins, small comments that say, yes, no, or look deeper. Above the room, a small organ loft waits for short concerts. This library is both a study and a workshop. It is where ideas become gifts. Next comes the dining room. The table is long but not endless. The wood is rich. The chairs are sturdy. Dinner here is about conversation, not display. Guests discuss books, music, science, and schools. Louise Carnegie keeps the flow gentle and the timing smooth. She prefers dinners that end with a short walk under the pergola or coffee in the library. On the south side sits the conservatory, glass, iron, and green life. When winter lowers the light in New York, this room shines. Louise tends orchids and flowering plants here. In the early afternoons, the air smells fresh and soft. You can hear the city faintly outside the walls, but inside the conservatory time slows. Move up the main stair, and you reach the family rooms. Andrew's bedroom is neat and simple. Louise's rooms are warm and bright. The nursery, once filled with toys and small chairs, opens toward the garden so Margaret could see trees and sky even on rainy days. Farther up, the guest rooms hold travelers from Scotland, professors from new colleges, and friends from the arts. Each room is comfortable, easy to air out, and practical to clean. At the top under the roof are the servants' quarters and the work routes. Narrow halls connect to service stairs, the Otis elevator, and dumbwaiters. There are closets for linens, a place for washing, and a small ironing room. Bells and speaking tubes link these floors to every major room below. From here, staff can answer a call without crossing the main halls. The house runs like a clock, and this floor is the gear room. Back downstairs, follow a staff corridor to the kitchen zone. The range is modern for its time. The larders are cool, a chilled room holds meat and dairy. A pantry sits between the kitchen and the dining room to stage dishes and keep the service smooth. When you listen closely, you hear the quiet rhythm of work, the hiss of water, the soft clink of china, and the low voice of a steward calling the next course. Every detail is small on purpose. This house is built to work without noise. Finally, we head below to the basement. Pipes, vents, and valves line the walls. 2 big boilers feed heat through the building. A small coal rail snakes across the floor to move fuel from storage to the furnace door. Panels track power and light. Tools hang where they belong. Even here, order rules. Andrew Carnegie believed beauty begins with things that function. In every room, public or private, the same rule repeats. Strong structure, soft finish, clear purpose. The house whispers a lesson to anyone who listens. Comfort does not have to be loud. A day in the Carnegie house. Morning starts early. In the garden, the grass shines with dew. A gardener checks the beds. In the basement, the engineer tests water pressure and watches the boiler gauges. In the kitchen, coffee warms and bread toasts. Andrew Carnegie eats a simple breakfast with Louise. They speak quietly about the day. He reviews a short list, letters to read, meetings to hold, and notes to sign. She reviews menus, station assignments, and any guests expected that evening. After breakfast, Andrew walks to the library. A secretary opens the mail. Letters come from every direction. A mayor in Kansas, a minister in Ontario, a college trustee in Scotland, a scientist in Washington. On the desk, they are sorted by subject: libraries, schools, music, science, peace. He reads quickly and makes small marks. A check for approve, a question mark for more facts, and a line through the ones that do not meet his rules. He still follows the same simple idea. He will fund the building if the town or school supports it forever. This rule matters more than any speech. It forces places to own the gift. Late morning, Andrew sees visitors. A professor presents evidence for a lab. A town leader shows a plan for a reading room with wide windows and long tables. A musician asks about a small grant for a concert series. Andrew is kind but firm. He asks about budgets and staffing. He wants numbers. He wants proof. When a plan is solid, he agrees with a clear letter that lays out the deal. When the plan is weak, he says no politely and explains why. At midday, he steps into the garden. It is the breath between pages. Trees sway, leaves click like light rain. He stands under the pergola for a minute, then returns to work. Louise moves through the house in her own rhythm. She reviews staff schedules, checks rooms, and adjusts flowers in vases. She sends notes to friends and writes thank you letters. At times, she slips into the conservatory to tend orchids. If a small dinner is planned, she decides the seating so talk will flow. She knows who likes quiet and who needs to speak. She does not aim to impress. She aims to welcome. Afternoons in the library bring more letters, more approvals, and sometimes short visits with Margaret when she comes in from lessons and asks a question about a map or a poem. Her father pauses gladly for that. Evening arrives, lamps glow along the hall. If guests come, they enter to light and calm. Dinner begins on time. The courses are steady and not many. After dessert, the group moves to the music room. A song fills the ceiling slowly and settles around the chairs. If there are no guests, the family keeps the house quiet. On many nights, they simply read. Later, the staff closes up the kitchen, turns down beds, dims the lamps, and checks the doors. In the basement, the engineer lowers the boilers to night level. The house breathes softly under the dark sky. The day is done. The house has done its job. After Homestead, reputation and repair. The name Homestead followed Andrew Carnegie through the rest of his life. He knew it. He felt it. He tried in his own way to answer it. He spoke often about workers, wages, and education. He supported night schools and training. He funded public libraries to lift people who had little money but big minds. He repeated his belief that the wealthy must give while alive. He explained that a job is a start, but a library and an education can change a life. But critics asked hard questions. If your mills could afford to build so many libraries, why were wages so low? If you respected workers so much, why did you break their union? If you believed in peace, why did you send Pinkertons first? Those questions never fully went away. Andrew Carnegie answered them with giving, with support for education, and with calls for peace, especially as Europe moved toward war. He tried to shape a world where disputes would be settled with arguments instead of guns, and where poverty would be fought with books instead of pity. Not everyone forgave him. History rarely allows a clean slate, but many people, students in small towns, readers in quiet rooms, scientists in new labs, felt the weight of his gifts and used them. The truth is not simple. A hard system built a hard fortune. That fortune built soft places where minds could grow. The mansion on Fifth Avenue carried that tension. To some, it was proof of restraint and duty. To others, it was still a rich man's claim. To most who walked through, it became something else. A place that turned wealth into work. Skibo, the Highland counterpart. Across the ocean stood Skibo Castle, where Andrew and Louise spent long summers before the war. Skibo was older, larger in land, and more theatrical than Fifth Avenue. It had towers, long halls, and miles of field and forest. But even there, Andrew aimed for structure. He modernized water systems, improved heating, and added electric light. He laid out a golf course and invited guests who cared more about speaking and listening than drinking and dancing. At Skibo, the rhythm was different. Mornings often began with a walk or a ride along the Dornoch Firth. Afternoons might hold music or reading, and evenings could end with a small concert. Louise ran that house with the same quiet strength she used in New York. Margaret grew up loving both homelands, the sharp light of Scotland and the steady calm of Manhattan. When war came in 1914, the crossings stopped. The family chose safety. Summers shifted to Shadowbrook in Massachusetts. Skibo became a memory in stone, echoed by the smaller but smarter house on Fifth Avenue. Numbers that became places. Inside the library at Fifth Avenue, numbers turned into buildings. A town wrote for a $10,000 library. A college asked for laboratory equipment. A music hall needed repairs. Over the years, those numbers piled into thousands of public libraries, many schools, and powerful institutions. More important than the count were the rules behind them. A gift must build something useful. The community must support it forever. The design must be open and welcoming. Wide steps, big windows, free entry. The measure of success is use, not a donor's name. Andrew Carnegie believed this model made people partners, not beggars. He had been a poor boy who borrowed books at a neighbor's library and then at Colonel James Anderson's Saturday reading room. He wanted to multiply that chance for millions of others. Some people saw these rules as strict, but they kept the focus on access, maintenance, and impact. A new library without staff or books is a box. A library with staff, books, and lights that stay on becomes a second school for an entire town. From his desk, Andrew read reports, visitor counts, book circulation, class sign-ups. He smiled at towns where use climbed each month. Those pages felt like profit sheets for the mind. The neighborhood that moved north. When Andrew Carnegie chose 91st Street, people talked. Why live so far uptown? Why not build near the Vanderbilts and their guests? But one house can change a map. Wealthy families began to see the value of sunlight, space, and park views. New houses rose nearby. The streets grew calmer and greener. A name appeared on signs and in newspapers. Carnegie Hill. The lines of fashionable Fifth Avenue pushed north. The house helped shape the streets around it without trying to. It did not shout for attention. It simply sat with dignity, and the city shifted toward it. Sometimes leadership looks like stillness. From private home to public museum. After Andrew died in 1919 and Louise in 1946, their daughter Margaret Carnegie Miller faced a choice. Keep a large private home or give it a new life. She chose the public. In 1949, the mansion was transferred for use as a design museum. Decades later, it joined the Smithsonian. The gates opened and stayed open. Visitors walked through the rooms where Andrew once read letters. Now, those rooms held chairs, textiles, inventions, and drawings that tell the story of how people make and improve things. The house itself taught a lesson. Technology hidden inside tradition can make life better without making noise. In the early 2010s, the building underwent a careful restoration. Craftspeople cleaned the stone, repaired woodwork, and updated wiring and climate systems so the museum could protect delicate objects. The work was slow and precise, like the house wanted. The garden opened to the public as well. Children now play where Margaret once ran. People eat lunch on benches in the shade. The lawn still glows after a rain. The pergola still throws a long shadow in late afternoon. The house and garden now serve the same city that once stood outside the fence and wondered what was inside. Criticism, defense, and the middle view. Some viewers will ask, was Andrew Carnegie a hero or a hypocrite? Criticism. He became rich in a system that kept wages low and hours long. His company broke a strong union. People died at Homestead. Libraries do not erase bullets. Defense. He used nearly all of his fortune to build public goods, libraries, schools, science centers, and music halls that changed millions of lives. He put clear rules on gifts so they would last. He did not build palaces for himself. He built tools for others. Middle view, both facts can live in one life. He was hard in business and generous in giving. He made a harsh fortune and turned it into soft places. The truth is not a clean line. It is a bridge with weight on both ends. The motto that stayed. Above the desk in the library hung a simple line. Let there be light. It is from the first page of the Bible, but here it also meant something practical. Turn on the lamp. Open the book. Share what you know. Light is the opposite of fear. Light is the friend of learning. In the end, that is what this house tried to do. Bring light into a modern city. Light through windows, light through wires, and light through books that anyone could read if someone simply opened the door. The library blueprint. How a gift became a town's heart. The library plan. Andrew Carnegie used was simple and powerful. A town asked for help. His office checked the population, the tax base, and the presence of a free reading room or school library. If the town agreed to buy the site, fund the staff, buy books, and keep the doors open to everyone, he would give money for the building. This created more than a pretty room with shelves. It created a public promise. Local leaders had to pass a tax or budget line to support the library forever. Community members had to vote for that support and use the library for it to thrive. The buildings themselves followed a pattern: broad steps, tall windows, a central desk where a librarian could see the whole room, and open stacks so people could walk to books without asking permission. Many had lecture halls for talks and concerts. Some had children's rooms with lower shelves and bright light. In small towns, the library became the warmest public space in winter and the coolest in summer. In big cities, it became a second school for anyone who wanted one. From the mansion's library, Andrew Carnegie could picture this: a child walking up the steps of a brick building in a town he would never visit, opening a book he would never read, and finding a new life he would never see. That was enough. The house versus the palaces. What plain really meant. To understand how unusual the Fifth Avenue mansion was, compare it to the Vanderbilt houses farther south. Their homes copied French chateaux and Italian palaces. They used white marble, heavy carving, and giant ballrooms where hundreds danced under gold ceilings. Their staircases were stages. Andrew Carnegie chose another path: brick, steel, proportion, and quiet craft. His ceilings were high, but not noisy. His rooms were large, but not theatrical. He traded a ballroom for a garden and a conservatory. He traded marble swagger for mechanical excellence. If the Vanderbilts sent a message that said, "Look at me," Carnegie sent one that said, "Look what works." That difference shaped the feel of the house. Even today, when you stand in the entrance hall, you sense it. The building does not ask for applause. It asks you to breathe. The museum years. What visitors see. Now. Today, the mansion as the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum teaches visitors to notice how design shapes life. In one gallery, you might see chairs that changed how people sit. In another, textiles and patterns that traveled across oceans. Elsewhere, tools and objects show how technology and taste meet in the things we use every day. The building itself is a gallery. The entrance hall introduces proportion. The library teaches purpose. The music room hosts exhibits about sound and craft. The garden explains what open space can do for a tired mind.